and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. I'm Joe. I'm joined here tonight by Fear Dragon, and we've got a terrific series coming up for you guys. It is Illinois Esports versus Georgia Institute of Technology. How are you feeling about this match tonight, Fear Dragon?
I'm pretty excited about it, Joe, just because this is, first of all, our last round 8 match. In fact, our last broadcast that we're doing for the CSL StarCraft 2 side before we go into those finals that's going to be happening on May 6th. So that's one really exciting thing. The second exciting thing is that these two teams are also, I think, going to be kind of closely matched in terms of, I think that there is a little bit of favoritism I give toward Georgia Institute of Technology. But I also think that there's still going to be some definite potential for upsets over here for, of course, Illinois University to try and make something happen.
Yeah, I think their star player has been Krillman. He's been doing really well throughout the season. Theory, of course, the star player here for Atlanta. So it's Georgia Institute of Technology. Don't know why I said Atlanta there.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that Georgia Institute of Technology, not in the CSL, but in the TESPA Collegiate Series recently, another collegiate event that's run by Blizzard, did defeat UC Berkeley here in the CSL, and in TESPA, Berkeley won the entire TESPA side of things. So it's a different format, not going to be exactly a one-to-one relation, but that does give me a lot of confidence in Georgia Institute of Technology to defeat a strong school like Berkeley.
Well, spawning here in the top left-hand corner, playing for Georgia, it is Theory.
And in the bottom right, we have our green Zerg player. It's going to be D Keyboard, representing Illinois Esports StarCraft.
So I think coming out here, Georgia does have probably their strongest player on the team. Kind of an old school Wings of Liberty player that would show up and do decently for himself in those open brackets. And
that's a really good description of Theory, actually.
Coming back, you know, he's been playing a bit, getting a bit more active. I know he was on Sloth's Academy team at one point, playing in some clan wars, getting some competitive experience again. I don't know how active he's been since then, but he's being active right now, dropping a pylon right in front of his opponent's hatchery.
This is a cute little fake out as well, because his opponent doesn't know if Theory has gone for a forge, so he's revealing the pylon by building it inside of the vision range of the hatchery. D Keyboard, he's only pulling one drone. I think he just is double checking. He's like, okay, you cancel the pylon. He knows he didn't really end up falling for this, so just doing some double checks with one drone, but not overreacting by pulling a ton of drones, which is really what Theory wanted there.
Yeah, and Theory is going to come in here, going to get the scout off with the probe he sent down for that kind of early trickster mischievery. He's going to see the pool coming down, going to back out here. And back on the other side of the map, just starting to get his natural up. This is, of course, backwater, so it's a pretty easy map if you want to play that way to kind of fortify up your front and just take those 3 easy bases. Not a lot of room for Zergling run-bys. If you want to do anything like that, you almost are forced to go into some kind of drop or other tech commitment. You're not just going to catch your opponent off guard unless they're really having a bad day.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how D Keyboard is going to play this one out, because this is such a nice map for Theory to just get up those easy 3 bases and to get into that normal groove that a lot of pros players love to get into and go for that kind of 3 base push, maybe even get a 4th base. Not that difficult. It's for a Protoss player to get. But Theory, you have to remember, Theory is going to be pretty favored coming into this. Orias G, aka D Keyboard in this situation, he's done fairly well for himself in CSL overall, but this is the star player right now for his opposing team. He's got to make something happen here if he really wants to seize momentum for the series.
Yeah, and this is the time in CSL, especially when you're a player of kind of the mid-masters level, the higher masters, but you're obviously not going to be qualifying for WCS anytime soon. This is when you take your most practiced builds out, the dirtiest tricks in your sleeve, and if you can upset their star player and make a win happen, even if it's just through some cheeky build order, well, suddenly that puts your team in a terrific advantage to win this series. Ooh. And with this fast layer coming down on 2 bases, he may have something crazy up his sleeve. Theory did scout the timing of that, which is super important for how he plays out these next couple minutes and prepares his defenses.
Yeah, a couple of things actually end up happening there. So Theory, first of all, scouts out that lair timing, but he also loses the Adept for only one drone. So it's not entirely an ideal situation. And if D Keyboard decides to get hyper aggressive, he is throwing down a Roach Warren and not really opting to grab that third base. Okay, Theory, he's looking for the scout on that third. He confirms that there's no third base with the Oracle. The Adept also shades back, and I would love for Theory to just go home now. Do not stick around here, because if there is a big attack coming, infestation pit coming out, Theory's got to be ready for something back at home.
Yeah, with this infestation pit, I think Theory might scout this and be like, what on earth is coming my way? He is getting all these drones, which is super nice for him. And for an attack that seems like a super specific prepared build order, that is not what you need to happen.
He didn't make spore crawlers. I just realized this. This didn't actually click for me before. Because the Oracle already came in once and scouted out there was no third base, but he didn't actually go into the mineral lines with the Oracles. And D-Keyboard is playing a super thin defense. He only has 3 queens as well. If 14 drones killed off, that is devastating damage, Joe.
Yeah, whatever D-Keyboard was going to do, he now has to do it on basically a hobbled economy here. And it's going to be really tough to pull off. It's going to have a lot less punch than whatever he was going to do before. And back at home, I mean, Theory knows something funky potentially is coming his way. He's just getting Immortals, he's getting Void Rays, and it looks like the weapon of choice out of D-Keyboard is going to be Swarm Host, but how many can he honestly make on just 21 drones?
Joe, I don't even have that much faith in the Swarmos because there's double Stargate out for Theory. He's just gonna pump out these Void Rays, and as soon as he, I think is, gets a little bit or supply block there, but as soon as he gets on supply block, he's gonna have double Void Ray production, and these Swarmos are not expected to do almost anything, especially in the low number that D-Keyboard's gonna be making them in.
Yeah, and the Locusts may fly, but they are not Scourge. They're not going to be crashing into those Void Rays and taking them down. They're just kind of gonna get scouted by this Oracle and most likely get pummeled while they're walking over. This could not be going worse for D-Keyboard.
And the Void Ray's just gonna come out and meet the Swarmos. I would love if he even just lets the Swarmos do their thing. You know what? If they even do some good damage to that third base, that's fine. The Void Ray will kill off all the Swarmos, and that'll be really nice fun. Yeah, GG gets called. Theory takes a clean one in game number 1.
Yeah, well done by him. Really showing kind of the caliber of player he is and continues to be, as he just, he got thrown a funky curveball and he dealt with it without breaking a sweat.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those unfortunate things because OriSG, or I guess D-Keyboard in that situation, I should say, goes for something that is very risky to do in this kind of day and age of PvZ, which is you just hope that your opponent's not opening up with Stargate. But Stargate is, I feel like maybe there's got to be some underlying research that D-Keyboard did or something, anticipating that Theory wasn't going to open up Stargate, and he just kind of got unlucky. Maybe he watched a bunch of the previous games of Theory recently, or has played on the ladder, because that is a really, really big risk to take for a matchup where almost every Protoss player is still opening up with Stargate. I feel like that's gotta be something that D-Keyboard was hoping because of some extra information we don't have, and it just didn't pan out.
Well, they're going to have a chance to redeem themselves in the next match, which is going to be a TVP between CJ, XYF, and GSOC Cube. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with that next match.
but she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell, but I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I'm no
Hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are getting ready to hop into our second game between GSOC Cube and Ro8, with Georgia leading 1-0.
Indeed. They're going to be in a pretty comfortable spot, having utilized their star player to claim that first game. But in the CSL, I always like to say that the second strongest player is oftentimes one of the most important players in a lineup. So we're going to find out how things go as we go into game number 2.
Spawning here in the top right-hand corner, playing for University of Illinois, it is Ro8.
And their opponent, spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have our purple Protoss player. It's Jessup Cube, representing good old Georgia Institute of Technology. Currently sitting up 1-0, and part of what we, at least Joe and I, like to call the cubes. I think it's Jessup Cubed, and who was the other one?
Box Cube.
Box Cube.
Yeah.
Haven't seen Box Cube. I don't think Box Cube is in the lineup today.
Yeah, I don't see him. I don't think he's going to be the ace. He was, if I recall, not the strongest person on Georgia, but he did play well.
But they made a great 2v2 team, Joe. They had
did.
teamwork.
I mean, they were like beating teams where both players were ranked significantly higher than them, and that's just, it's the nature of 2v2, where if you play it, a lot of abusive things that might look a little silly but can be crazy powerful.
Absolutely. Well, we already got our first little probe scout over here from Jessup Cube. We're going to see, okay, yeah, you got your gas geyser, you got your one barracks, and we can already see, even though Jessup Cube hasn't seen it just yet, that there is going to be a command center planted down, as I guess if he's on the low ground and building minerals. And just going to try and be a little bit annoying? No, he's not going to go after that SCV. So it's going to be a nice, good old opening from both sides. No crazy one-way shenanigans just yet.
Yeah, and it does look like back on the other side of the map, GSOC Cube just getting his cyber core down, getting his gases at the typical times here. Nothing crazy like you said. I think it's going to be, once this first Reaper comes out, reactor coming down. That could be for some kind of interesting push here.
So there are some TVP openings that a lot of Terran players have been going for occasionally. It's not a super common thing always, but a lot of Terran players have enjoyed going for the Reactor Hellion opening. So you get out a couple of Hellions, you can either go for the drop or you can just run them straight in. And a lot of Protoss players realize that Stalker DPS is just not that great versus Hellions. So you can get a surprising amount of damage on there. It looks like, Ro8 is going to put that reactor on the factory. Sometimes I think there are some weird Widowmine builds here, but no, yeah, it's going to just be the Hellions.
Well, he's getting a proxied starport here.
Yeah, so you can put on a lot of really nice early aggression. The idea is you run in with the Hellions, you get some good probe damage done, you're forcing out more of these Stalkers, maybe even some Adepts or something, and then you come in with a Liberator, and your opponent is just so pulled apart from so many different angles. It's difficult for a Protoss player to deal with all of the things quickly enough because their early game units are just not made to kill off these kind of harassment units from a Terran player that quickly.
Well, that first medevac going to be coming out here, like you said. All kinds of funky drop potentials. And Black-Pink, decent map for it. You've got a lot of angles to get in here. And GSOC Cube just sitting on Stalkers still. We're going to have to see how he's able to deal with it. Just catching those Hellions can be a huge pain here as Ro8 moves out with his first 4 units.
Yeah, keep in mind that Jessup Cube has no idea that these Hellions are coming just yet. They are making their way across the map and loading up into that medevac. We're going to see the angle that you were talking about. There are multiple angles that he can go for, and he is going to go straight over toward the main base. The Starport is also making that Liberator behind this, so there's a bit of a question. Is he going to move in with both of these at the same time, or is he going to wait for that Liberator, or sorry, run in straight with the Hellions before the Liberator's finished?
Yeah, it looks like he is. That shield battery trying to get down in the nick of time, but not going to be anywhere close. Decent spread at first out of Q, but now these probes starting to line up a bit and allowing Chico to get a lot of shots off on here. And these Hellions will eventually get cleaned up because they're pinned back, but not before taking out a massive amount of probes.
Yeah, more or less getting close to evening up that worker count for both sides, both sitting around 35-ish workers. The Liberator's going to be coming into the natural. He's not sieging up, though, but Jessup Cube doesn't seem to have noticed. Okay, now he notices with the Stalkers. Blink is also finished up, so he should have no problems cleaning that up.
Yeah, the shield battery does help hold those Stalkers down, so no losses were taken. Ro8 gonna go home with that starport and just kind of go back to macroing, knowing that he did at least put a dent in kind of the early game of his opponent here.
Yeah, it looks very flashy. It looks really good to say, I killed 11 workers. But remember that this was a pretty big investment because you're trading off the reactor that you first build to the factory. You're delaying your stim upgrade. You're proxying your starport, which, by the way, this entire time is floating across the map. No more medevacs are being produced or anything like that. No liberators, no nothing. So this was a big investment for Ro8, and I feel like he kind of came out okay with it, but his tech is going to be kind of suffering for it as well.
Yeah, and we do see that he's taking kind of a defensive posture, so perhaps he can help catch up in that regard. He's got a Widow Mine at the front to try to ward off any of those Stalkers. He's continuing to increase his tank count behind that, even getting that bunker down just for extra safekeeping here as he does go up to 3 CCs, gets the starport back in his base, and kind of goes back into what we might call normal Terran macro mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, third base is going to be very important to get that next transition step out. And since Stim is now, I believe, finished up, you can start working on things like combat shields. I think that's about 25% finished or so. So after he gets combat shields, he's maybe going to be able to do a bit more with that bio. And he still has that single medevac from earlier on. Would love to even see him maybe even just poke around and consider going for some drops just to get some sort of pressure on the map.
Yeah, and it looks like back at home, Jessup adding on those double forges, wanting to make sure he gets those upgrades cranked out. He's also taking his own third here, and his tech choice is going to be Immortals behind all this. We'll have to see how committed that is, or if he just wants to kind of anchor his early game army here.
Yeah, joined in with the double forge, I mean, you can go for these kind of really heavy, that's a really nice pick off of the medevac. I cannot overstate that enough. As, okay, force fields, not really going to keep this bio out. Both of the sentries are going to go down. It gets a little weird because remember, Ro8 doesn't have any other medevacs, so each one of these stims are really painful. He did stim up his entire army to chase after those sentries, and he stims up again. Those units, again, they're not going to get healed.
Yeah, and actually, he's being forced back here. A big aggressive blink by Jessup. These Stalkers are going to die fast to the bio, especially with the tanks in the back here. And trading bio for Stalkers is okay, but you don't want your entire army to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, losing the siege tanks is a little bit painful. He picks off a decent number of the Stalkers and picks off one of the Immortals, so it's not all bad, but it's kind of like what you were saying before. It's the entire army there for Ro8 traded, and now Charge is on the way. He's got 1-1 on the way, being chrono boosted out. Not exactly in advance of his opponent, since it does look like Ro8 is starting out +2 weapons and already has +1 done. But eventually, Jessup Cube is going to catch up with those upgrades, and he's just going to have some really, really nice rounded compositions.
Yeah, Jessup perhaps looking to be out on the map again. I mean, he's got 2 lucky catches in the middle of the map already. Why not try for a third? The army, though, that Ro8 is coming out with is a bit meatier. This time it's got a couple of medevacs in support. He needs to be careful with these medevacs. He's letting them kind of fly as the vanguard of this army, and that could get really dicey here.
Yeah, he's also going so Marauder heavy. It's going to do well versus the earlier game Stalkers that were made. And hey, it might even help out a little bit versus the Immortal, but the Immortal packs a punch. And charge lots are going to be the primary thing that I think Jessup Cube is going to be warping in. So this may end up backfiring a little bit. We're going to have to wait and see how things actually end up playing out now.
Yeah, and right now we're just kind of in a dance here where Jisak Cube looks a little bit pinned up, maybe not able to fight in the best position, but his army does look a lot more powerful than Ro8 here, who has to be really, really careful when trying to do this.
Okay, here we go. The Zealots are tanking up so much of that early fire. The 1-1 upgrades finish up before Ro8 has +2 weapons or +1 armor. That upgrade advantage, of course, going to be going to Jessup Cube, and he does manage to hold. And not only that, but he cleans up all of those siege tanks that were made, kills off a decent amount of the bio, and has safely gotten away with a pretty solid third.
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out that's going on behind this is Ro8, his army is getting bigger very quickly. It's starting to scale very fast. He's adding in Liberators for some complexity. He's even added in the Ghost Academy already, so he will, in theory, have the counter up to the High Templars that are going to be coming out soon. He's not falling too far behind in terms of the units he needs to continue fighting with. When Terran and Protoss go to late team a lot of the times. Oh, here comes a drop.
Yeah, the drop is going to be really effective for at least a little bit. The Zealots warping in should be able to at least force a lift up. If not, yeah, kill off all those units. And the Stalkers trying to blink to chase after the medevacs. They do manage to get one of them, which is a pretty big victory because there's only 3 medevacs out on the map, and it's mostly Liberators being produced. Ro8 has such an aggressive style where he just says, you know what? I'm just going to continue rallying units across the map. I don't need to heal up my units all that much because I can get out more damage-dealing units. It's fine. And killing off the Warp Prism, that's another nice victory.
Yeah, it means he knows that at least for the next minute or so, he's going to have freedom to just attack, and that is what he wants to do here. If he can find a nice position, especially with these Liberators to help kind of set up no-go zones, he can make some real pain on his opponent here, and he's going to get sieged up on this third because Jisak Cube is out of position.
Yeah, this is really nice positioning in some ways, but kind of awkward in other. The Liberator's not playing much of an impact in this fight just yet, but he does manage to get a nice amount of snipe offs there on some Stalkers, some Zealots that were a little bit too far forward. Widow Mines in the far, far back. He could end up retreating to them eventually, but the Liberators are doing the damage they need to.
Yeah, and suddenly, Ro8's army looks absolutely overwhelming here. Every probe coming off the line, it's just Immortals in the back, nothing to deal with those liberation zones, but Ro8 is not even sticking to them. He's pushing to the absolute front here, and that's just about the entire army of Jisak Cube. Ro8 more than doubling the supply of his opponent. I think he's gonna tie this series up.
Oh, that's a little bit rough. We ended up seeing Jessup Cube seconds away from Storm, but he didn't have the High Templars out anyways. He didn't have the units or the High Templars that would have energy around a Storm, so it was still going to be a little bit longer. It would have been a big difference if he'd had that on time, or I shouldn't say on time, if he had been able to get it up a bit earlier, but Ro8 hits a really nice timing there, punches his opponent, and takes the game.
Yeah, well done. That's going to tie the series up, and I think that's going to put the rest of the series in a really interesting position. Probably pretty favorable to go to the ace match here, if I had to say. And,
well, it is going to come down, I think, to the next 2 games to find out if we're going to go to that ace match. The 2v2, always something that can shift one way or the other. It's always hard to call on the 2v2. But, yeah, even that game number 4 that we are now guaranteed to see, Krillman versus Plumerant, that should be a pretty interesting one as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure excited to see that. So don't go anywhere, because we are going to be right back with our 2v2. And we're...
Oh, we're out of time. The final call is calling. And the light falls lightly between us. Mistakes erased, forgotten. Life goes on without me. But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost felt.
Hello and welcome back to the 2v2. It is all tied up here as we go into the middle of this series. Once again, we are playing University of Illinois versus the University of Georgia. And one of these teams is going to put their own team back in the league, getting them one step closer to that round of 4.
Yeah, Georgia Institute of Technology going to be facing off again, as you said, Joe, versus University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. But you're going to be hopping into that game.
And spawning here in the bottom left-hand corner, playing for University of, or Georgia Tech rather, it is Gsot Cube and his teammate in the blue, Pluto.
And spawning up at the top right, we have our green Zerg player. It is D Keyboard. And their teammate, the red Terran player. It's going to be Neverland. They're going to be representing University of Illinois.
Now, this is Overgrown Facility, which is a map we haven't seen quite as much of. It's a bit of a... I mean, it's still 2v2, so things can definitely get a little wild up in here. But it's, I would call it more of a standard map. You do have that pocket expansion you can secure. You can go up to the 3rd and take that gold base if you want to play things a little bit riskier. But it lends itself to options and macro play if that's what you want to do. Unlike Shrines of Lizul, which we've seen a lot of in the CSL, where it's kind of one base on one base on one base, and maybe a Zerg player takes a macro hatchet as natural.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I really like what Georgia Tech is doing right now, where they're, first of all, they're double Protoss. That's a very unusual thing, I think, to see in 2v2s. Most teams will usually have at most one Protoss, or usually you just, in general, in 2v2s don't tend to see double of the same race. So it's already a little bit weird, but on this map, you can go for something like this completed wall off, and now you've not only locked down both of your main bases to Ling run-bys and whatnot, but now you also have an extra little 3rd base that either one of you guys can get, and you've also protected your natural expansion.
Yeah, it's a potent opener here, and especially if you want to go for some kind of super hard-hitting Warp Prison base attack, well, you might not need to walk out that front door. And with double Protoss, I gotta think that's what they're going for. Not necessarily that exact build, but something gateway-based and something aggressive.
Interesting. Okay, I really didn't expect Gisop Cube to rally the Adepts to the inside of the wall, and same thing for Pluto with the Stalker there. I really thought that just because they were going for this full wall off, they're getting out all these early units, Crota boosting about. I really was convinced they were going to get hyper-aggressive here, but it seems like they may just be set up defensively. The Zealots are on the outside to help hold the wall at the front, and all the range units on the other side of the wall that are going to be safely protected, even the shield batteries there. But I'm not seeing an expansion or anything being thrown down just yet for either one of these Protoss players. Okay, now we're starting to see the probes moving down for Jessup Cube.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, this is probably the stage in the CSL where we start to see the most studied builds. So a lot of these 2v2 teams play as a team pretty consistently. So you get a chance to see, well, what kind of push-outs do they like? Do they like to be aggressive? And it looks like they may have gotten an accurate read on their opponents here as a Ro8 Cyclone push-out comes in. And I think they're going to be glad they have all these shield batteries and range units behind the wall backing up their defenses.
Yeah, I mean, they got a pretty good scout out on the Terran player. Seeing the double gas guys, there's a pretty big reveal that early on. And seeing this pool first also maybe a good indicator that the Zerg player wants to get aggressive. But they definitely committed to this kind of gateway wall in earlier. So I like that they had a good read on what their opponents are going to do before they even scattered anything out.
And here comes those first Cyclones starting to pin down on the Adepts here. The Overlord being cleverly used for vision. Up there in the top right-hand corner, Ravager's going to throw those Biles down. Try to get some work done on the shield batteries. And trying to get it targeted down. Nice force field's going to zone them out from effective targeting here. And a Void Ray's going to come into the mix.
Oh, the Void Ray adds all kinds of problems here for Illinois because, yes, the Cyclones can lock onto the Void Ray, but the shield batteries are there to heal it up, and the Cyclones don't do that much damage for an elongated period of time to air units. So while the wall is finally knocked down, there's still a handful of units left over, but it's mostly Stalkers, and this Immortal is getting really, really low.
Yeah, second Immortal is on the way here. That's going to pop out in just a moment, but it's not going to have a chance to fire at the same time as the other Immortal here. Another barrier going to come down to one of those corrosive Biles, and the Cyclones are getting on top of absolutely everything. Suddenly, Pluto and GSOC Cube looking to be in a lot of trouble here.
Oh, Joseph Cube, he got a late start on his warp gate technology, so his warp gate isn't done. It's only halfway done right now. If he had been able to warp in some units, that would be so helpful in this situation, but the Void Ray is doing some work. He's killing off the last of the Cyclones on the inside of the base. Now he needs to get involved and start killing off some of these Ravagers, and they may still be able to hold here with the finished up shield batteries.
Yeah, they need to find a way to deal with the Lings that are about to start destroying their economy, though, while at the same time holding the front. This is a lot to ask of a small pack of high-tech units, but they're doing their best. GSOC Cube dancing around with those probes, trying to evade the destruction here, but his economy is absolutely devastated. Only a single probe remaining. They may hold the front for a few moments more, but it is looking increasingly desperate.
Yeah, Illinois has broken through the Protoss players. The Lings flood now into Pluto's main base, and looks like they're going to be able to get some pretty substantial damage done. Really, really well done. I was skeptical. I mean, you're going up a ramp into a fully walled off Protoss player, or two fully walled off Protoss players with shield batteries and air units like the Void Ray and everything. It was a bit of a crazy kind of aggression to pull off there, but they make it work, and they make it work really, really well.
Yeah, I find if you can break the wall, Lings find a way, and it looks like they have. GG is called, and D Keyboard and Neverland gonna take that game for Illinois.
Indeed, and that puts them up 2-1. They only need one more game to move on to the semifinals, Joe. And if they move into the semifinals, they are locked in for the final day of the CSL. They're so close. They're so close they can taste it, but they just need one more victory. And let me tell you something. Georgia Institute of Technology is not going to give it to them for free in Game 4.
Yeah, so don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with what could be the last game of the playoffs before we get to our finals.
Mistakes are But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell. But I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I'm no
Right from the start, we knew that this would never be now, baby. Be now, baby. We're miles apart, and we just wanna let it free now, baby. Free now, baby. This understand how we got here. I just wanna disappear. Tell me how we could be right here. I swear it came out of nowhere. Sometimes I wanna run away for the thrill of the chase. But it's hard when you mean so much. Oh, you mean so much. Why do you mean this much? I promise
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are getting into our fourth match of the evening between Krillman and Plurmarant. That's a name that I've struggled to say since the start of the CSL. It's going to be
I
a
know,
ZVZ.
from like multiple seasons now. It's been like one of those names.
Yeah, and once I get it, I'm like, oh, right, yeah, it's definitely Plurmarant. But, like, it takes me a time or two to get into this.
It's a subtle R before the M. That's the tricky part of it. If it was just Plummarant, like, it's a plum and that's cool. But
And it rants.
the R. Yeah, right.
Well, spawning here in the bottom right-hand corner, playing for Elena. He has to win here to keep his team's hopes alive. It is Plurmarant.
And their opponents spawning up at the top left, we have our green Zerg player. Currently sitting up 2-1 for Illinois. It's Krillman. I believe it is, in fact, a Grandmaster League player, if double check that correctly before we hop into the game. But Joe, we would be remiss if we did not mention that this is Abiogenesis. This is the smallest map in the map pool. It's oftentimes a map that many players veto just because it is so quick for rush distances. It is such an aggressive map, and it's an aggressive map in a ZVZ.
Yeah, and I mean, Plurmarant, I was looking at his profile, and he does have 4 GM finishes. So even though Krillman is not, or is obviously kind of the favorite here, he's a current GM. We know he plays a lot and is pretty active. I don't think this is quite as far as a matchup as these players' MMRs might suggest here. And Abiogenesis, ZVZ, absolutely anything can happen, like you were saying.
Yeah, Krillman is going to be opening up with that pool, then Hatchery. Of course, also got the Gas Geyser as well. But on the other side, Plummarant opting to go for that Hatch Gas Pool, getting up the 6 Lings. I should say Krillman is getting up those 6 Lings. Plummarant is still, of course, waiting for his spawning pool. But we'll see how many he commits to. He's making 8 now. If he makes any more, I'm really going to be convinced that this is going to be something close to a big all-in.
Yeah, so he does have the first 6 out. The second 2 come behind that. No more Lings on the way just yet. I'm watching that production tab carefully to see if it's back into drones here. Because like you said, that's the big tell, whatever unit he makes next here. Plummarant has no idea this is coming, obviously, and he's about to be in for a world of panic.
Yeah, he does have 6 of his own Lings coming out, as well as the Queen's going to be popping soon, and it is just going to be drones behind this for Krillman. So I would say that it seems unlikely Krillman's going to be super happy with how this is opened up. He does have enough Lings to continue threatening this natural, but once the Queen pops out, if he doesn't get a pick off on the Queen, I do think that Plummarant should be able to defend here without really taking many losses. And with a faster hatchery, more drones, he's probably going to feel a lot better about these openings.
Yeah, and you know what? Good on Plummarant here for not panicking. He didn't see the 6 Lings and think, oh god, this is a big all-in. He kept his head. He's droning behind it already. And he's actually going up to a 2-minute and 58-second layer.
This is dangerous because Krillman does have Ling speed, so this is still a little bit annoying to deal with, and he should know that his opponent was definitely going to be able to get a super easy scout because this is Abiogenesis. He saw what the exact timing of that hatchery was, so he should have known this is a pool first, was likely going to lead into a faster Ling speed. And now that layer, having been scouted, I think that limits a lot of the options of what you can really do with this in terms of surprise factor.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And Krillman even managing to keep 2 Lings alive here to try to turn them into Banelings. They are going to get caught. They are going to get caught.
No, okay, he does spot him. Oh, that was close. That was a little bit dangerous. But 4 drones already going down is pretty bad. That was, I feel like, enough damage because Krillman is already up on workers now, and he's got his Baneling nest. And if he so chooses to, he's already making 10 more Lings. He could get hyper aggressive here after having spotted out that lair.
Yeah, and why not? You know what your opponent's resources are committed into. I do like what Plummarant's doing, potentially being a bit aggressive to keep that army of Krillman back here. And he just has to be really careful not to get caught by overwhelming numbers of Lings that are streaming across the map.
Yeah, this is a big problem. Plummarant didn't even go for a Spine Crawler, which I feel like the only reason you don't go for a Spine Crawler is if you're trying to hide the Spire even more. But his opponent already kind of knew that there was a super fast lair, so I feel like you might as well just invest in it at that point in case your opponent goes for not only Ling but also Baneling aggression. And with just more Lings on the way in a third base, I feel like Krillman is really well set up to just flood out a ton of units and try and punch Bloomerang before he gets up a large number of mutas.
Yeah, I mean, Plumerant does now have a decent Ling presence out on the map. He's going to be threatening and jibbing and jabbing here. And his plan is just to try to buy time for these mutas with all these backstab attacks. He cannot get trapped here with these Lings. If he loses that, then the path for aggression is 100% open for Krillman to put the pressure on.
Yeah, Plumerant is doing a good job, though, buying a substantial amount of time. The Spire is now finished up. He is not able to start up too many mutas just yet since he's still waiting on some of those minerals. But he's losing a lot of the Lings in exchange for time. And that time is finally about to start paying off because now, if Krillman tries to move across the map with his Lings and also his Banelings are likely going to get picked off very quickly. And his Lings are even just, they're not really getting the damage done fast enough.
Yeah, I do like what Krillman's doing here with the second run by over here because he knows that his opponent's forces are engaged out on the map trying to buy more time. And this is going to be allowed to sneak in and potentially do a huge amount of damage in the drone line.
Okay, the Lings on the north side are also winning that fight, so they might be able to get some damage on that third. 4 drones going down with this other Ling run by, but eventually getting cleaned up by the mutas. Third base getting low, and the mutas are starting to come forward. I think that there are enough mutas to clean this up.
There are, but Ravi, is this going to be the one? He's tried it 3 times now, but I genuinely don't think Plumerant is aware of what is happening here.
Oh no, he's sending the mutas across the map. He has no idea. Is he going to react with his drones in time? He's not realizing it. Oh, he's going to lose 10 workers. Oh my god, that's some pretty substantial amount of damage.
Yeah, it's going to put a lot more pressure on these mutas. These mutas are no longer to get ahead. They're to not be behind, and that's a tough position to be in here. Especially with just 6 mutas. When the attack is super scouted, there's spore crawlers everywhere and a heavy queen count to back this up.
Yeah, look at this. 3 spores in that natural. An absurd number of queens to defend that third base. Even has another one that's just popped out over there. And even just 1 spore crawler in the main base. This is... Oh, I want to say an overinvestment, but considering how much damage he's done, I feel like it's perfectly fine amounts of defense to make sure these mutas are almost worthless.
Yeah, and Plumerant not even able to get overlords at the edges here. This muta pack not good for a lot, and this Ling run by may have a chance to seriously threaten the third base here.
Okay, well, the queen is most likely at least going to go down, as well as a couple of these drones. There's only 1 muta in the air. Some of the mutas are starting to come back, and I think he will be able to save the hatchery from dying, but even that takes a bit more damage and just pulls the mutas back. So guess what? We end up seeing just more and more defenses, or sorry, I should say more drones coming out for Krillman as more spore crawlers also go up. And he just says, I'm going to continue to capitalize on this lead.
You know things are going bad when you have a big muta pack out and you're the one losing overlords to your opponent's queens here. This is really tough for Plumerant. He's sharking around, he's trying to find some chinks in the armor, manages to pick up a couple of queens, but Krillman is very quickly getting up his hydras, and I think his next attack may be looking for the throat here if he just goes across with a big Hydra Bane Ling army.
Yeah, the Hydras are not out in massive numbers just yet. There's only 7 out with 5 more going to be popping. And remember, those queen pickoffs are meaningful because he picked off the high energy queens especially. So Krillman has a decent number of queens still left over, 7 of them. But it is hard as the game goes on to split them up properly. And the mutas finding a couple more little bits and pieces of damage. It's not a lot, but it is something.
Yeah, it needs to be really careful not to lose these at the angles. One goes down. Is the second one going to fall?
The Ling run by at the third as well. It's getting that hatchery. I think he's finally going to get it.
Krillman playing this out really nicely, really working his multitasking to the absolute limit here as Plumerant continues to kind of just fall apart here.
Okay, now the Hydras are also out in pretty scary numbers with 14 out and 9 more about to pop. The Hydra upgrades for muscular augments is about to finish up to complement and groove spines, who's going to have that additional range. And everything is coming together for that big attack from Krillman, and all he really needs to do is hit before his opponent has that nice rounded ground army of roaches and ravagers.
All right, and Krillman trying to once again poke around with these run-bys. He doesn't really even need to at this point, but he's just trying to gain every advantage for himself that he can here as he continues to just macro up, power up his army, And now he's going to have the Ro8 shield out too, so he's not vulnerable to any kind of big Baneling attack or anything like that that can sometimes take a Hydra army by surprise. And I just don't know what Plumerant does in this situation.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's exactly what you were saying. I suggested that Krillman needed to make this attack before a large number of Roaches or Ravagers are out, but he's perfectly fine also just sitting back because he has a third base. He has way more workers, I think 12 or so more workers that he's actually getting value out of. And he's got a scary looking army defensively with so many spores to invalidate any of these mutas. He is fine just sitting back and getting up to almost maxed out.
Yeah, maybe there can be some miracle biles here. Plumerant needs to be really careful to be aggressive without getting trapped. And these Ravagers doing an okay job so far, but he is bleeding units pretty quickly.
Yeah, remember the mutas are not fighters. They're harassment units. And the supply that Krillman is up on is on top of the fact that his opponent has a bunch of these units that are not made for a main army engagement. So if he's able to take a good one, this is going to be really, really nice for Krillman. The Ravagers, though, are kind of unaccounted for in that supply. They do make up for that with the Corrosive Vials, like you were saying, but he's losing so many of them. He's getting decent Vials, but they're still just not quite good enough.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the end here for Georgia as Illinois pressing into the front here. The GG is called. And terrific series by Illinois.
Really, really well done, I've got to say, because my money, and I think a lot of people's bets, were going to be on Georgia Institute of Technology, who took out this behemoth in this form of UC Berkeley, who is just such a well-renowned college in terms of esports. Not even just since the era of Suppy, but even recently, being able to do so well, UC Berkeley was in the TESPA Collegiate Series. And Georgia Institute of Technology taking them out in the round of 16 and really set them up to say, you know what, we are one of the really strong teams that can make a deep run. And they did make a deep run, but Illinois is shutting them down and make themselves a spot in those semifinals.
Yeah, so that is going to be it for our regular bracket. Or not the regular bracket, we are obviously in the playoff bracket. But the next CSL broadcast is going to be Sunday. It's going to kick off at 1 p.m. We're going to have our top 4 Fear Dragon.
Pacific, 1 p.m. Pacific. If you're on the East Coast, I believe it's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern.
1 p.m. Pacific. Time zones are super important, and I forget about them sometimes. So thank you guys.
I think that's Pacific. I'm going to double check on that, actually. But guys, it's going to be on May 6th.
Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. We will be back Sunday with the final broadcast of the playoffs. And see you then.